Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to give it a few more minutes to see some other people are just getting on board now. So if you'll just be patient, we'll chime on in about 2 minutes. We're just going to give the other people a chance to register, to get the registration done. Thank you. Hello again, everyone. Sorry, I had to dash out and shut my door because it's hockey night in Canada in my house, so I had to stop the other sounds from coming in the room. Welcome and thanks for joining us this evening. We're so pleased you could come and find out some more information on this really interesting topic. I'm going to introduce you to our facilitator, our host, Lindsay, in a few minutes, and I wanted to start off with just a general welcome from the Canadian Childcare Federation. And like I said, we're glad you could join us this evening for our Wednesday webinar series. And I wanted to start off with a land recognition. And I'm actually coming to you from Ottawa tonight. So we respectfully acknowledge that the land on which the CCCF is located is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We recognize all Indigenous people who are here before us, those who live with us now, and the 7 generations to come. As Indigenous people have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all. Today, these lands continue to be shared territory and are occupied by many diverse peoples from near and far. A treaty is an inheritance, a responsibility, and a relationship. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and dedicate ourselves to move forward in a partnership with Indigenous communities in spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So again, welcome. And I want to say a big hello to Lindsay. So I'm going to give you a little background about our facilitator this evening. Dr. Lindsay Herriot, who's joining us tonight, PhD, is an adjunct assistant professor in the Faculty of Education and School of Child and Youth Care, and a sessional instructor with the Department of Gender Studies at the University of Victoria. She is also an inclusive learning teacher in School District 61, the co-founder of Gender Generations Project and Early Learning Hive. Her research focuses on LGBTQ youth, trans joy and resilience, moral panics, youth citizenship, student participatory action research, religious diversity, and educational policy. Lindsay is the author of board books about using they, them pronouns with newborns and the co-editor of an anthology written by trans youth. Of Acadian and Scottish background, Lindsay is fluent in English and French. And we're proud to say she is also the developer of an exciting course that we're going to be launching soon that you're going to be talking about in your presentation, so I won't steal your thunder. I'm going to turn it over to you, Lindsay, and I'm going to actually shut off my camera when you're talking so people aren't seeing all these talking heads, and I will participate. I'll see if people have questions, please put them in the questions. You can say hello, tell us where you're from, anything like that if you want to share some details. And oh yes, the other thing I know people often ask questions about during the presentation, so I want to tell you now, is the certificates for attending this live webinar event will be sent out after the webinar. So they'll be sent out by Friday. So you just give us 2 days to turn that around. Anyway, so here we go. We're getting some hello. So I'll turn it off and I'll turn it over to you, Lindsay, and I'll just be here in the background.
Great. Thanks so much, Robin. I'm going to see how I can do this. Okay. So hi, thanks for that. And thank you to everyone who's joining from all across the country, especially if you probably spent the day with young children today and you could be having a hot bath or reading a book or enjoying a margarita or maybe all three of those things at once. And you're here tonight to spend an hour with us, which I appreciate so much and will try to make it really useful. I'm originally from Mi'kmaq territory in Moncton, New Brunswick, and I'm now zooming in as an uninvited settler on unceded Lekwungen territory here in Victoria, British Columbia. And as Robin said, tonight is kind of an amuse-bouche of a 7-hour course that we've developed. It's available in English and in French, and it will be launching or coming out with the Canadian Childcare Federation in both English and French on June 1st, which is great for Pride Month. And it's linked to all 10 provincial frameworks. It does provide a certificate of completion, and it's all about gender joy in the early years. It was developed because my 3 kiddos at the bottom there were all assigned a they, them pronoun at birth, and they are now ages 8, 5, and 3. So we are still very much involved in the early childhood world. And our daycare experience has been nothing short of fantastic and inclusive and warm and fuzzy and every good thing that you could think of around my kiddos starting as little babies with they, them pronouns. And so in working with the educators at our center, we developed this course in hopes that we can support all kids and really all people in having a great gender experience in early childhood. So that's what this course is about and where it came from. We won't cover all of the 7 hours into 1 hour. If you love this topic and are really interested, I encourage you to take the full course. It's broken up into hour-long modules. So you take an hour, you do an hour, and then go back into your workplace, into the field, and there's stuff to notice and think about, and then you come back for an hour and go back and forth like this. But today will just be an overview to get an idea, and hopefully in about 55 minutes, folks will be feeling a little bit more confident and comfortable in addressing gender and gender diversity in the early years. So we'll break it into 4 sections because it's nice to have a timeline of where are we and where this going. So we'll start with how gender joy is for everyone. You don't have to be trans or non-binary or two-spirit to experience gender joy. All people have a gender story, and whether or not you teach a trans kiddo or work with a non-binary colleague, you probably will in the future if you aren't already. But even if that's not the case, the content of today is really about how gender joy is just for everyone and how it can really cause delight in early childhood spaces. So we'll start with that, how gender joy is for everyone and our own gender stories of gender joy. Then we'll move on to really directly tying it to early childhood practice with the picture book, Jamie is Jamie. And then we'll talk a little bit about protections for gender joy and, really what to do if someone gets mad or if there's stress or if there's tensions and how you're protected. And then finally, we'll end with some conversations because I would love to know what folks are thinking. So as we begin, I'd like to start with a word cloud. So Robin, if you could pop the link and the code into the chat. If you're not familiar, I wasn't. I'm a geriatric millennial, so this is quite new to me. A word cloud is you type in a word or a word or a couple words or a phrase of what resonates for you when you think about either gender or gender diversity in early childhood spaces. So I'm going to try to switch it so that we can see it. So if you log in to this word cloud.
Yes, I popped it in the chat.
Okay, great. So let's just see. Results will appear below. So if you type, if folks are able to see it, you can type in anything you're thinking about About gender or gender diversity. Oh, there we go. It just took a minute.
It's just a little delay. It's all fine.
Yeah, that's all right. Amazing. Child agency, free spirit, unsure, normal. And then if you see things that resonate, type them again and it'll grow bigger. So it's like kind of like upvoting them. Oh, amazing. Authentic, sense of self, pronouns. Well, oh, this is amazing. Okay, we could spend all night. So as the talk goes on, as the night goes on, please keep adding to this word cloud and we'll check back in on it at the end of the night to see how the collective wisdom has unfolded. So I'll switch back to us now. Okay, so to start, let's start with gender joy. So get nice and comfy, maybe cross or uncross your legs, take a deep breath. We're going to do 2 imaging exercises. You might want to close your eyes, you might not. So think of a moment, either in your childhood or in your adulthood, when you felt completely happy in your gender. So just think for a minute. In maybe how you were thinking about gender, how you were doing gender, how you were expressing gender, and try to notice how did your heart feel and how your body feels. If you're feeling especially brave, you are invited to type into the chat an example of when you felt really great in gender, but you absolutely don't have to. Because I talk about this all the time. I can use myself as an example. I experience gender joy right now when I'm doing my makeup. It makes me feel really awesome. I love playing with colors and textures and palettes, and it's kind of a mix of feeling both relaxed and energized, and it's something I do just for me. And my heart feels like it's almost like it's glowing, and my body feels really warm and fuzzy, and I just feel completely authentically me when I'm doing my makeup. And I try to do my makeup every day because it makes me feel great. And it's not really about anyone else's thoughts. It's just about me and how I feel great. And that's how I feel happy in my gender. All right,
Some people,
so hold on to that for a moment.
Can you see the questions from your screen? Oh, you can't. Okay, so I'll tell you. Yeah, I think sometimes, I'm not sure if they can write in the chat. I think they can only write in the question. So I'll feed those to you if you have. So people are saying things like childbirth, becoming a mom. Someone says, when I do shopping, my heart flies in the sky, just because I guess it's time that they have on their own. So that's nice. Dressing up, some people are saying. God. Yeah. Confident, becoming a grandparent.
I wish I could see all of this.
I know. I will save them for you. I will save them for you so you can see them.
Okay,
but yeah, jumping and spinning in fancy dresses for Christmas.
Work, love it. Okay, Robin, at any point, if you want to just chime in with what's happening in the chat, because I can't see it, that would be great, because it's so much better to hear from other people than just me. So at any point,
sure.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry that the chat's not working. So people can put them in the questions, and I'll be sure to read them, and I'll feed them through too. So there you go.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's gender joy. Great. So everyone should now have a moment, which obviously everyone has had, but just to think about that of like, yeah, what is that like for me? Okay, now we're gonna flip and do one more imaging exercise on gender policing. So take another moment, think back to an experience either in childhood or adulthood where you felt criticized, judged, shamed, or policed is the term that we use in academia for it, for how you were doing gender. So you're doing your thing, you're doing gender in however you're doing it, and someone needed to weigh in, maybe not even verbally, maybe with a look or a gesture, and you felt really shut down. So just think for a moment of a time that someone else needed to weigh in that you were doing gender wrong in some way. And how did your heart feel, like your emotions and your spirit? And then how does your body feel? So again, for me, I love using this example twice. Mine is also makeup. When I was much younger, um, I was quite bright and quite academic in school, and people older than me who I really looked up to, more than a few of them weighed in that makeup is really like, they wouldn't have said the word frivolous, but like silly and girly, and like that's not really for you. Come on, you're going to go to university, or you're gonna go off and do things, as if the two are as if you can't do both.
Yeah.
But people really, and it really shut that down for me, that I'm not supposed to be that kind of girl. And I really didn't get back into makeup again until about a year after I finished my PhD, because then I finally felt confident enough that I could be smart and love makeup, and that would be okay. But it really took to get that piece of paper and get that like certification to be like, okay, now I'm allowed to be this kind of girl. Um,
Oh,
and and so maybe you've had an experience too where you were doing something or wearing something or were interested in something that's for a different gender, than the one that you are, or the one that people think that you are, or that you were doing gender, for mine with makeup, that's a traditionally feminine thing and I am a woman. But it was still, I was seen to be doing gender wrong by doing that.
yes, here's some thoughts that people share. So someone said, my heart felt sad when I was more of a tomboy than a girly girl.
Yeah.
Someone else has said, no tank tops in school.
Yep.
I kept my hair cut short as a child. I wore jeans, t-shirts for comfort, and I was criticized.
Hmm.
Playing sports and being very active as a child. Um, Cod fishing with my dad, was told it was a boy activity.
No.
I know people judged me for that. My favorite color was blue as a child. I loved construction toys as a child in the play center. Little girls are meant to be seen, not heard. Someone's saying being overweight as a heavyset woman, being judged that I'm not good enough. It hurts judging before knowing my heart. As a
Yeah.
child, I played with girl toys. It was told by many people that I was wrong, made me feel terrible. Um, Being too strong or too big to be feminine.
Yep.
Um,
All the
yeah,
All the thing. Okay, I promise the rest of it won't be like, thank you for sharing, for folks who were feeling brave to share. I think that when we share both of these things, what's the point of this, is that gender policing and gender joy happen for everyone. You don't need to be, you can be cis, so cis or cisgender, which is spelled CIS, means that you were a doctor or a midwife looked at you and said you are this gender, and you continue to be that gender. So for me, I'm a cisgender woman. So when I was born, a doctor looked at me and said, you're a girl, and I continue to be a woman now. So that's what cisgender is. Gender policing and gender joy happen for absolutely everyone, right? And so the reason I always start here is that we all have experiences all the time of feeling gender great, and also having people weigh in and be like, no, you're doing that wrong and it sucks. And so I really want to get away from the idea that gender or gender policing or that gender diversity is something that only happens for those kids or for trans kids or for queer kids. It's really an everyone issue, and everyone's liberation and freedom and joy and happiness are wrapped up in us solving this for everyone. Um, I used to call this an imperfect metaphor, but then my spouse pointed out, because it's using the word like, it's actually a simile. So the way I kind of think about it is that gender expression, so how we're doing gender on the outside, can be like a t-shirt, in that if you think for a minute of what it feels like to walk around in public in your absolute favorite t-shirt. Okay, just think for a minute, think of your body. Or if it's not a t-shirt, something else that you love to wear, your favorite outfit. It probably fits just right. The size and style will probably change. My favorite outfit from 10 years ago is not my favorite outfit now, but I do have one. And it doesn't need to work for anyone else. It just needs to work for you. when you're in public in your favorite outfit, you're probably feeling pretty great, kind of like that gender joy, because so much of how we express gender is through our clothes, through our grooming. And you're probably able to kind of go about your day and think about other things that are not gender because you feel really good inside, right? And everything's matching and everything's working. So you have the brain space and the emotional space to pay attention to other stuff going on. So you can kind of contrast that with what it feels like if you've ever been out in public in a t-shirt or an outfit that's like a size too small, and how uncomfortable that is, like in your body, and you kind of feel like everyone's looking at you, even if they aren't, or staring at you, and you're like kind of like tugging and kind of squirming all the time, and like you're embarrassed, and it's hard to focus on whatever it is that you're trying to do, because you're like kind of just it's just not right. And so I find when we think about gender joy and gender policing, it's kind of related in that it can bring up the same ideas, right? If you're worried, or when you're worried that other people are judging you for how you're doing gender, it's very hard to go do the rest of your day and to get on with your life. But on the flip side is that when you're feeling great in your gender, just like with your favorite outfit, it's really easy to go about the rest of your day and just get stuff done and be efficient and be delightful. So there's my imperfect simile, not a metaphor. So now we're going to bring this really, really tightly into ECE. So what does all of this mean for specifically early childhood spaces and young children? We'll start by reading one of my favorite books on the subject, and the longer course of this that's going to be available in June has actually 17 picture book read alouds, just like this one, that'll give really concrete, clear examples of, okay, how do I bring this in? And then you can also bring those books right into your center. So this is Jamie is Jamie, a book about being yourself and playing your way. It's written by Asana Moradian, and it's illustrated by Maria Bogade. And as we read, just try to keep in the back of your mind around the idea of gender joy and gender policing, and kind of how that's swirling around in Jamie's classroom for everyone. So, Jamie had just moved to a new home and neighborhood. There was so much to do. Unpack boxes of toys and clothes and explore the yard outside. Most of all, Jamie was excited to start school and make new friends. At school the next day, Jamie joined the other kids in free play. A group of boys were racing cars on the floor. Jamie noticed that the back wheels had popped off one of the cars. A boy named Joey was having trouble putting them back on. "Can I help?" asked Jamie. "Are you strong enough?" replied Joey. Jamie picked up the wheels, pushed them back into place, and vroomed the car back over to Joey. "Well, thanks," said Joey. Next, Jamie saw a girl looking in the mirror and posing. "What are you doing?" asked Jamie. "I am a ballerina," explained Alicia. "I'm practicing ballet." "Can I try?" wondered Jamie. "You have to wear a leotard, a frilly tutu, tights, and special dance shoes to do a pirouette like this." Jamie watched as Alicia twirled around. Then Jamie did a perfect pirouette in pants and sneakers. Alicia was surprised. Jamie heard a baby doll crying and went to see what was wrong. Cynthia was having trouble. "I can't get her to stop crying." Jamie held up the baby doll's head while she drank and gently patted her back until she burped. "You did that just like my mummy," Cynthia said. Next, Jamie went over to a boy playing alone with action figures. "Can I play?" asked Jamie. "Are you a boy? Only boys can play with action figures," replied Xavier. "I'm Jamie," answered Jamie, picking up a superhero figure. We're being attacked by a giant purple hargermonger. Xavier grabbed 2 superhero figures and fought off the villain with Jamie. For the rest of free play, Jamie joined a pair of girls doing somersaults, told jokes to some kids until they fell on the floor laughing, finished a dinosaur puzzle with a couple of boys, and played chef in the toy kitchen. Jamie's mummy was the first parent to arrive at pickup time. Leaving the classroom, Jamie waved goodbye to the other kids. Alicia said, Jamie is so graceful. She should be a ballerina one day. What? Jamie's a boy, replied Joey. He fixed my car so fast, he's going to be a mechanic. Cynthia said, Jamie is a great mummy. She knew just how to take care of my baby doll. Xavier was confused. Wait a minute. Is Jamie a boy or a girl? I don't know, said Alicia, but I can't wait to play with Jamie tomorrow. That was a lot of fun. The next day, during free play at school, Jamie decided to do some drawing. Nearby, Joey said, Cynthia, your baby looks cold. Let me help you put a sweater on her. Jamie watched as Joey and Cynthia took care of the baby doll together. Then, Jamie noticed Alicia using the action figures to teach Xavier different ballet positions. They both made the action figures dance to fight the villain. Jamie, come play action figures with us, said Xavier. Sure. Jamie crouched down next to them and whispered, What's the plan? And Jamie was happy because everyone was playing exactly what they wanted to play. And then at the back, there's some tips for educators. So there's so much to love about Jamie is Jamie. The big thing right off the top is gender is absolutely not canceled in Jamie is Jamie. Everyone still has a gender. Everyone can keep their gender. No one is trying to convert anyone. No one is trying to change anyone. Books that have characters like Jamie, who we don't know what their pronoun is and we don't know what their gender identity is, are not getting rid of gender for anyone. But I like to think of them as actually opening gender up. So rather than having gender be closed down, like we heard about in our collective stories of gender policing, where someone or something has decided that gender needs to look like this for you. And by the way, no one ever gets it right, according to how cultures decide that gender should be. No one can do it. It's impossible because it changes all the time. But gender isn't being shut down here in Jamie and Jamie's, but it's being opened up big and wide. It's a lot more expansive and it's a lot more colorful and it's a lot more playful than what it maybe had previously been. So my read of Jamie is Jamie, because I read this one a lot, is that it opened up 3 new things. Jamie's arrival in the classroom opened up 3 new possibilities for everyone in the class. The first is materials. We talk a lot in early childhood about materials and loose parts and how people are working with materials and space and who's working with materials and where materials are being worked with. And so, for example, Joey gets to play with a doll and Alicia gets to play with action figures. So this is opening up new materials to kids who may not have seen themselves as being able to interact with those materials. The second is friendships. Joey at the end is now playing with Cynthia and Alicia is now playing with Xavier, and those pairings may not have happened otherwise. They may not have seen each other as potential playmates or friends. And then the third is play scripts, which you would know a lot about, especially around learning stories, in that Alicia and Xavier are playing with action figures, but now they're playing with them in a new way, right? By having them dance. That wasn't Xavier, when Xavier was playing with the action figures alone, the possibility that the action figures could dance wasn't on the table until Alicia joined in the play. And together now they're creating new play possibilities that weren't, available before. And finally, I love about Jamie and Jamie or what I love about this book is the openness to the unknown. And I like very much that the author decided not to share Jamie's pronouns or Jamie's gender, because it really, I think, demonstrates this fabulous curiosity and openness that so underpins all of early childhood work. That it's okay to not know, that it's okay to not pin anything down. It's okay. Just that okayness, right? That's why I love early childhood, right? Like everyone can just take a deep breath together and be okay. And it's not that Jamie doesn't have a gender identity or gender expression. They do. And I'm sure Jamie does have pronouns, but it was okay for us to not know that Jamie can still be included as a vital and vibrant part of the classroom without us knowing that. So it's not, the idea isn't that we're getting away from gender, but it's just okay that we don't know it. Yeah, so that's Jamie is Jamie. And finally, a quick note, Jamie is Jamie presents quite a rosy view of what it's like to be a child whose gender identity and pronouns are not known. In this book, there's no bullying, there's no exclusions, and that we know that that's simply not the case. There are other books that tackle this, that tackle those exclusions, those bullying, and even simply curiosity and more education around this, and that's fine. Every book doesn't need to tell every story, and it's not, I don't want to give the impression that simply by having a child who is like Jamie, who we don't know what their pronouns are, that all of a sudden magically gender will just change for the better in your room or in your space. It won't. You still have to talk about those issues head on and address them directly with, you know, good evidence and gentleness and care. So I don't want to give the impression that that's the case, but I like it as a hopeful possibility. And I think Jamie is Jamie opens a lot of possibilities to a more gender expansive early childhood space. So then we'll move on to protections for gender joy. I love talking to folks about how they would feel about reading Jamie is Jamie in their center or in their room or their space, and what might happen. And most folks, if they do have concerns about Jamie is Jamie, will say, well, what if someone gets upset? What if someone disagrees? What if there's tension? What if there's conflict? So the great news, this is an overwhelming slide. The great news is that the catchphrase is policy is protection. You are so well protected in terms of policies from the frameworks. And so you can see there are all 10 provincial frameworks there, if you can find your province. All 10 provincial early learning frameworks, including the Indigenous Early Learning Framework and the Northwest Territories. Unfortunately, the Yukon and Nunavut did not have them at the time, their own standalones at the time that we developed this course. But I read all of them, all 10, plus the Indigenous, plus the Northwest Territories, and found all of the ways in which you are supported if you are working in the field, supported and protected around including and affirming kids of all gender identities. Robin will helpfully drop that. It's all broken up by province, so you can just find your own province and then look through. So Robin will drop that somewhere.
It's in the handouts. Yeah.
Yay! It's in the handouts. But just kind of as an overview, there's every single province and territory had kind of general protections around equity, diversity, and inclusion. So things like, you know, from Alberta, equity means that each member of the community receives what is needed to participate and contribute. Or from Manitoba, each child must feel a sense of belonging and feel positive about his or her own identity, right? So that can include, even though it's not about gender in specifically, that includes, you know, having kids not be gender policed, having kids experience gender joy and flourishing in early childhood. So each and every province has lots to say about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then almost every province has something great to say about gender in particular. So here in in Alberta, it says, for example, how do you encourage the participation of every child? Think about children's friendships, patterns of exclusion, activity choices, gender, race, and class, right? So that can be that if you're an Alberta educator, that can really protect you around someone, say, being distressed that, a boy is being allowed to play in the princess area. Well, according to the Alberta framework, you can't actually discourage his participation based on gender. Or in my home province of New Brunswick, they ask the question, are our beliefs about gender limiting possibilities? Are we saying, well, that's the way boys are or girls are? In Saskatchewan, it gives the example that, both girls and boys play with blocks. And in Quebec, it talks about rotating tasks so that girls also move heavy objects and boys also carry out cleaning tasks. So there's lots in there in each framework around how to encourage a much broader and a much more open expression of gender for everyone. And then finally, some of the provinces, not all, but a fair few, have great things to say around LGBTQ specific stuff. So from coast to coast, I just went with my home province and then where I live now in British Columbia. It says right in the framework, do children have opportunities to experiment with transgressing gender stereotypes? Or a little further down, what are my assumptions of transgender children, transgender adults? And then over in New Brunswick, where I'm from originally, it says negotiating rules of time and space and roles. Jan, who was 3 years old, and Louise are playing house. They both want to be mummy. Jan says, we'll both be the mummy, and then we'll have 2 mummies. Easy peasy. The bottom line is that, because I'm not going to read pages and pages of policy IU, is that you are not doing this alone. There are people, programs, and policies to support you. Robin's also got another PDF that we've prepared for you of supportive resources broken into type and where they're available by province in both English and French, so that you're not doing any of this work alone.
It's in the handouts. Yeah, I put in there too.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So if or when there is tension or curiosity or questions, don't try to go it alone. Try to look up, and we've provided all the cheat sheets for you of who are the other folks and who are the other what are the other policies that really protect you so that you're not going in by yourself. And so I would love to now turn over, it's deliberately quite short because I would love to hear what you have to say and to hear your questions and comments and conversations. So maybe while Robin is at, I will keep the slide open to our word cloud. Oh, wow, 91 answers.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so we have about 20 minutes to chat and to ask questions and be curious.
Yeah, so feel free to put your questions in the question bar and then I can refer them. Oh, I did have one question actually that came up. Someone was asking if the French course will have French literature referenced, and yes, okay. I thought so, but I thought I'll ask you just in case.
It certainly does. Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. All of the resources are in French. It's not really a translation in the sense that we either found French translations of the books or we found original books that were only available in French or articles that were only available in French and designed the course around those. Great question.
That's amazing. Okay, so when will we receive the handouts? Okay, so if you look in your, and I'm not exactly sure how this appears to you as an attendee as opposed to me and what Lindsay see as organizers, but there is a section that says handouts. And if you click on the small arrow, you hopefully will see that there's 2 handouts there. So give that a try. And if that's not working, let me know. And we'll find another way of getting the handouts to you, because I've also attached them, I think, to the follow-up email. I think I found a way to attach them to that. But they should be appearing in your menu bar. So in your little bar to the side, on the right-hand side, it's a control menu bar where you put in your questions. Just lower to that, you'll see a section that says handouts. So you may be able to find those.
Folks can hopefully see it on my screen. I'm circling it with the cursor. If you can see my GoToWebinar control panel.
Yep.
You'll see the head. Yeah, it's sharing, then attendees, audio, webcam, questions, and then handout.
Okay, here's a question. What are some ways that we can provide opportunities for gender joy in our materials?
That's such a great question. Around materials, I think one of the biggest things is to mix them up, because already the ways that materials come, especially stuff, you already know this, that's kind of prepackaged branded, comes very branded as this is for girls and this is for boys. Even, I mean, obviously in early childhood, they can't read, but it's interesting from my own experience with my kids, they used to love all the Paw Patrol pups. And then at age 3, my oldest is a girl, and then she only liked Sky because all the other girls only liked Sky. And then the rest of the pups were like, well, that she just wasn't into them. And obviously it didn't say girl on Sky, right? But
Right.
she's the pink pup. And so that's what we all did. And it makes me think so much of how socially it's not that she didn't genuinely love Sky. I believe that she did. But how socially mediated that is, because pink is now a girl's color, huge air quotes there. But that wasn't the case. Until the 1950s, blue was for girls because it was closer to the Virgin Mary. So that's why if you watch, or when you watch Charlie Brown's Christmas, Lucy and Sally are wearing blue dresses. Blue was for girls, and pink used to be for boys. Pink was the baby version of the more masculine red.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it changes. So isn't that cool and like interesting and weird? So all this to say is that if that was still the case, if blue was a girl's color now, then I believe that all the girls would gravitate to the one blue pup, because that's what our culture has decided is for girls, and that, right? And so it really, this is a definitely long-winded and roundabout way of answering this question, and I don't think I'm doing a very good job of it. But to think about from that perspective, how are the toys or materials coded of what is for whom and why? So in the dress up corner, you know, we love dramatic play. You know, what types of costumes are available and how will the children see gender, or and then try to scramble that a little bit and see if you can queer the gender in that way.
That'd be a good idea. Oh, here, I'll turn my camera on smoothly. Okay, then I have another question. There still is a bias around males working in childcare. How do we combat this so children can see adults in different roles in ECE?
Yes. We do a whole bunch of that in the French version of this course because there's a fabulous group called Mixité d'Hommes. I can't write in the chat, but if you Google, it's MIXITI, so like mixing, meaning like men, HOMMES, and they are a group in Quebec that does fabulous work around men in early childhood. They're so great because they do not take the position that as men they should be treated better than the women who do this work in a traditionally pink collar profession, but that men should be engaged in early childhood. Yeah, we need more men in early childhood. One of the things I find fascinating is how, and it's in the English version of this course, is how there's a lot of talk about, well, we've got to get girls in STEM and we've got to get girls playing with blocks because, you know, little girls are not represented in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we've got to really push that for girls and get girls into engineering. And that's great. I think girls doing engineering is great. I don't see a similar push for men to take on traditionally feminized roles or pink collar professions, certainly like early childhood. And I think the answer is, I as I understand it, is quite disappointingly just misogyny.
Yeah.
Right? It's always seen under the patriarchal society that we live in now. It's always better for a girl or a woman to try something that men and boys do because they have higher status, and it's seen as shameful for boys or men to do something that's traditionally feminine because that's lower status and lower paid. And it's
Yeah.
lower paid because it's lower status. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is misogyny, because women's work is not valued. So I think that as we move towards, hopefully, move towards a less patriarchal society, we will see that. It is my hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also around early childhood, there's also unfortunately the awful stereotype prejudice around men who work with children as being sexually violent or predatory, which we know is not true, which is an ugly rumor, and it certainly is rooted in homophobia and in transphobia, and it's really ugly.
Now, what did you? I did put something in the chat for people too. There's another group organized. I believe it's Mark Battle that does it, and he's got a group called More Like Me in ECE. And that's another group that isn't just male, trying to encourage more male participation, but a lot of it is more male participation, but also more diversity in general. So that might be something. And I know he used to have a Facebook group because actually my son is interested in the field too, and his picture was up there, featured in his Facebook group for a while. So you could put that in your Facebook search bar, you might be able to find it. And then what was the one that you mentioned that was French? I was just going to put that in the chat too.
Mixité d'hommes. Let me see.
MIXE.
IE.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. You can read there. Okay.
Yeah, they have a beautiful picture book that they wrote that we feature in the course.
Oh, great. Okay, that's perfect. So I just want to make sure I had that. Now, someone else is asking, how would a gender joy conversation play out explaining why there's a boy dressing up and girls dressed to an angry parent when it's thing is happening? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, we use that as the example in both English and French versions of the course, because that tends to be the one that happens. And it's so hard. So the first one is even on language, and it goes back to the first question on materials. And I know the educator writing this would be repeating the language of the angry parent, right? So I don't want you to feel like accused or called out. I understand what you're doing, but even the way that imagined angry parent is saying it's a girl's dress, dresses don't have genders. Isn't that cool? They're just clothes. One of the fun parts for me of having babies that were born they them and assigned they them at birth was that I didn't have to worry about going and getting them girls clothes or boys clothes, or the funniest is girls diapers and boys diapers. I could pick what I thought was cool, frankly whatever my hand touched first, and also what was cheaper. And you didn't have to worry about it. It's just a thing, right? We don't have to even assign gender to it. So that can be even something to go back to the first one, is how materials are even talked about around a girl's dress or girl's clothes. They're just clothes. They're just dresses. They're for everyone. They're for all bodies and genders. So that's a piece for your practice. Now to go back to the parent, I give all credit to a fabulous educator at my kids' daycare who talked to me about her strategy for this, and she's given me permission to share this story. And I think it's quite beautiful how she did it. Is she had a lot to juggle because we can't gender police kids in early childhood. We just can't. In the same way that we can't do a lot of other things that, like I grew up in the 80s, you can't spank kids now. You just can't, right? And as we move in a different direction, we can't, if a parent is gender policing or gender controlling their kid at home, that's at home. Here in early childhood, we have to follow the framework. So we can't shut that down. And we can't have tension with families, because in all of the frameworks, it's around respecting families, valuing families, encouraging families, listening to families. So she wanted me to use the name Sophie, so I'm going to use the name Sophie for this educator. What she decided to do, because she had a kiddo, he, him, a boy who loved doing princess play. Dad was in no way okay with this. She tried to have some gentle conversations, did not go well. So she decided that about 45 minutes before pickup time, the dramatic play area was just closed. And we all ended the day on a group art project. And this made sense to the kids because we can't have the dramatic play costumes out when we're doing art because the paint gets everywhere. So it just felt very natural to just, okay, and now we're putting all of that away. And now every day, at the end of the day, we're going to do group art. And I thought this was such an ingenious solution because then that little boy got to do all of his princess play, and he knew dad would never walk in on him doing it. He had the freedom to go back to the the metaphor of the t-shirt, to experience gender joy and to feel completely comfortable and do his thing. And he was never going to get caught, and it was never going to be a fight. And it's not, things happen if you work in the field. You don't give a full accounting to the parents every day of every single thing that happened. There's too many things that happen in the run of a day. So the educator just talked about other things that the kid had done. He did this on the slide, and he did this at snack time, and he did this, and that he was allowed to be engaging in princess play in a way. Now, it's not a perfect solution because I don't think a perfect solution exists. But I think the way that this educator balanced everything, she needed to make sure that that kid was safe. She also needed to make sure that all the other kids in the class didn't see him being gender policed, because that's a message to the class as a whole. If this boy is not allowed to play with dresses, that's a really chilling message. That's teaching everyone something about gender. And she can't do that in the same way that we don't tell children based on race that they can't do different things, or based on ability that they can't do different things. She can't close gender in that way. And so I think she found a really elegant solution. And it wasn't a perfect one, and it wasn't a permanent one. She's still talking to the dad, and hopefully someday things will come along for him, but maybe not. And at least this way that kiddo is safe and cared for and not having arguments between daycare and home. So it is absolutely not perfect. I wish it was a perfect solution, but that doesn't exist. That's the best we've got for right now.
Great. Well, yes, it's very complicated. So I had another question. How might we respond if a parent expresses concern regarding a child's gender, play, dress?
Yeah, around their own
Yeah,
kid or a different kid?
I think around their own. So if the parent comes to you expressing concern about some things their child is expressing, they don't quite know what to do about it.
Yeah, so I think as a parent who picks up my 3-year-old every day from daycare, you really take the temperature, right? The educator really takes the temperature of where things are at. So you'd start by kind of assessing, and instantly, is this a parent who's just curious and wants some more information, right? And then you can direct them to resources. The resource list in the handout is a great start for all sorts of things, websites and books and podcasts and all the stuff. If it's not, if it's more of a stressed parent, there's some tension there. You can always go back to the frameworks of, in our center, everything is for every gender. Toys don't have a gender, materials don't have a gender. Everyone can play with everything, and we encourage kids to. But that's why you have your framework and you have your quotes. I don't work in the field in ECE, I'm in the school system, but I absolutely have policy 4035 basically memorized so that I'm prepared, so that if and when a parent comes to me and is stressed, I can say, well, this is the policy that I must follow, and I have to provide a safe and inclusive learning environment for all students, regardless of gender identity. See, I've got that one memorized. And so, you're welcome to parent how you parent in your home. That's, I have no opinion on that. I have to follow this. And
Right.
it can remove it from being a personality conflict, because it's not me, it's a document. And so it can lower the temperature quite a bit when you can say to people, well, you're welcome to bring that up with the ministry, because the ministry says I have to follow this guideline, and this is me following this guideline.
That's actually a great idea, and this actually probably answers this question somewhat too. Okay, so that was about the handouts, sorry, not that one. How do you approach management that do not include gender diversity books because of religious reasons and think it will confuse children?
Mm.
So, I mean, you could turn to
So
your policy
that's a
again, like someone like you just suggested, you know, like go back to the policies and the frameworks.
Yeah, that's the, I mean, that's the shorthand solution. The religion one is so near and dear to my heart. My postdoc was in trans inclusion under Catholicism.
Oh,
So the greatest ones that I love are by the first trans Lutheran bishop. Their name is Megan Rower. Um, their picture books, Transgender Children of God, and is great. And we have it at our home, and we gave it to our center. And then they also have Is It a Boy, a Girl, or Both, which is written from a distinctly Christian perspective by a transgender Lutheran bishop. And I mean, Megan Rower is cool anyway. Definitely follow them on the socials. But what I love about it is how it really complicates the idea that LGBT, anything queer is over here, and anything religion is over here, and those two are somehow opposite with each other. And they are not. Queer people of faith exist. Queer children of faith exist. And so I think it can be really helpful to point people, and again, it's in the resource handout, all sorts of faith organizations of every faith, all the faiths have loud, affirming queer groups that actively advocate. There are queer Muslims in Canada, queer Jews, queer Baha'i, queer, all the things. And that's where you go to, because otherwise it can turn into very quickly this binary of, well, we can be this religious, but then we have to be less queer. But then if we're more queer, we're somehow less religious. And that's not the framing here. So my default around faith is to go find, and you don't have to start from scratch. I've given you a starting point, but Google's also your friend here. Go find, for whatever faith community you are part of, go find the queer organizations there, and they can get you started to say, well, actually, it's quite aligned with the faith to be doing this, 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 and this.
nice. That's great. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, I know there's some more questions, but if you don't mind, Lindsay, I think what I'm going to try and do is capture some of those questions, and I can forward them to you, and we can do our best to get some of those, maybe some more general responses in with the follow-up email that we send, if that works for you.
Absolutely. I'll go on mute now.
Oh, you don't have to, but I just thought that would be a way of trying to capture some of those extra questions, because some of them are really interesting, but I did want to end on time and respect everyone's time and get some time for yourself this evening. And
before I go on mute, Robin, I just wanted to say to the folks coming, like, really, you worked all day with kids. I am so touched, especially as a mom of they, them pronoun kiddos. My 5-year-old and my 3-year-old are still rocking a they, them pronoun. Thank you so much for coming and spending an evening with me. Truly, our educators are magic and have been great, and I know that you are great in the field too, and I just genuinely appreciate all that you do. So thank you for spending the evening with us. Now
that's great. Well, thank you. I mean, the presentation was amazing and really opened up, I'm sure, a lot of our minds to a topic that not a lot of us know a lot about, to be honest, and maybe some are struggling with. So I think it's a really great place to start the conversation. And as Lindsay mentioned, we do have a course that Lindsay's developed with some colleagues that we'll be offering here with the Canadian Childcare Federation. And if you're a member of the Federation, you can access that course for free as of June 1st. And if you're a non-member, there's a small fee for that. And we'll be sending lots of details about it. But so you can look forward to that. I just quickly want to touch upon, in closing, who we are is the Canadian Childcare Federation, and I'm sure some of you know that. I hope most of you know that. Most of you would belong to us perhaps through your affiliate organizations, or your provincial affiliate belongs to the Canadian Childcare Federation, and then they belong to us. So we're all kind of a mixed group that way. So we are them, we are you, they are us. Some other pieces I want to touch upon before leaving was these courses that we've been talking about. So as well as these Wednesday webinars as a form of professional learning, we'd like to offer some other things to you as well. And we have our new family childcare training program that we launched May 1st. In French and English. The French one will be coming soon, but we've piloted both of them. They're very successful, so we're very excited to be offering that. We're offering the gender and gender diversity and EC course as of June 1st. And then July 1st, we'll be reopening our online outdoor play course, which some of you may be familiar with. And we will be having ongoing registrations for these courses throughout the year. So you'll be able to hop on and take those, and you'll have a limited time to complete the course. I think it's a year per course, so it's a long time. I mean, but the courses themselves are all self-guided, and so you do it at your own pace and your own time, which allows you that freedom to be able to perhaps sit in front of your computer after a long day, but have yourself a nice cup of tea and dive into the course and do it at your own pace, which is great. I wanted to let you know about our next free webinar coming up is on shared book reading, and our expert facilitator is going to be the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation. And we'll be sending out information about that, links to register, all that kind of thing on our Facebook page, as well as in an e-blast. So that'll be a way you can capture that information. And I wanted to take a minute, as I mentioned, our affiliate organizations across Canada are what makes the Federation. So we are a federated model, so we're the Canadian Childcare Federation, and in the Canadian Childcare Federation are several provincial and territorial organizations. So here's a map showing you our various organizations. You may see your organization there that you belong to, and that's great. And what we're trying to do at the end of every one of our Wednesday webinars is to put a spotlight on one of our affiliates. So tonight we're putting a spotlight on the Saskatchewan Early Childhood Association, which often you might know of as SECA. And of course, they're in Saskatchewan. You can see them, there's number 5. And I will go on to there we go. So they're dedicated to high quality early learning in partnership with all those invested in the growth and development of children. And you'll see a QR code there that will lead you to their website with some additional information about their organization and the important things that they do within Saskatchewan, and as well on a national scene through their work with the Canadian Childcare Federation. So I will now turn, so Lindsay, in closing, do you have anything you'd like to add or conclude with?
Hi, just wishing everyone gender joy for you, for your colleagues, for the kids you work with, just wishing you lots of gender joy tomorrow and in all your days. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, well, thank you. I can't thank you enough. This has been a wonderful conversation and a really interesting topic, and I'm so glad we were able to open that dialogue for people who maybe have not thought about it. And this is a great introduction, and they can continue on with the course that you developed, which is amazing. So I'm looking forward to people being able to access that. So thank you very much. And with that, I will say goodbye and wish you all a good evening, and hope you get some time to relax this evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.